The systematic destruction of American family budgets has begun, but most people have no idea what is about to come. There was a time when the average American could work hard and build a bright future for the whole family, but not anymore. From galloping inflation and an unprecedented housing bubble to an exploitative healthcare system and soaring energy prices, evident signs show that the middle class will be unable to survive in 2023. Just like the federal budget deficit, the American family budgets are also about to become a headache for the citizens. Before moving on, we kindly ask that you support our work with a thumbs up on our video, and don't forget to subscribe and keep following Epic Economist. Without further ado, here are 15 indicators that American family budgets will be blown away in 2023. Number 1. Galloping inflation. The specter of inflation has haunted Americans throughout 2022. Soaring inflation caused the cost of many goods to increase significantly in the past year, but the ghost of inflation is still hovering on the horizon. And this trend is likely to continue through 2023, with food prices at elementary and secondary schools already increased by 254%, egg prices by almost 50%, and bread by 15%. The family budgets will definitely take a toll in the coming months. Most are now considering shopping on a stricter budget and can't think of purchasing non-essential items amid back-breaking food price hikes. According to a Bankrate survey, almost 2/3 of U.S. adults don't think their finances will improve in the upcoming year, with most blaming inflation. There seems no way out from this vicious cycle as inflation keeps skyrocketing, job losses have massively increased, and incomes have stagnated. More on that in a while. Number 2. Rising unemployment. The United States has experienced its highest level of unemployment since the Great Depression in April 2020, hitting 14.7%. While the post-pandemic world provided the respite with the unemployment rate currently hovering between 3.5 and 3.7%. However, it is expected that the rate will again increase in 2023 as the Federal Reserve maintains its policies to tame inflation. On top of that, 1 in 7 U.S. households is already scrambling to pay for food right now. How are they going to live in such harsh conditions with no jobs? With the average American household budget at around $5,000, unemployment in this economic mayhem would shatter a common man. But unemployment is here to stay, just like the raging fuel prices. Number 3. Energy prices are expected to stay at historic highs. If you thought we had seen the worst of fuel prices and shortages, we are afraid to break it to you that you are mistaken. The United States Energy Information Administration, EIA, has rung the alarm bells that the energy crisis is far from over. Energy prices, including oil, natural gas, coal, and electricity, will remain historically high through 2023 due to geopolitical uncertainties and tight inventories. The winter from hell is here, which is gonna shake the supply and demand system. Get ready, as your savings will be squeezed in this nightmare of energy price hikes. And people need to realize when fuel runs out, everything runs out. Number 4. War in Ukraine continues to tighten supply chains. The energy crisis will not be averted unless we nip the evil in the bud. But Russia is not pulling back at the moment. In fact, the ultimate end game in Ukraine is uncertain, and it appears that muscle flexing in Ukraine will continue at the expense of food hikes and economic catastrophe. Well, American wallets will face the brunt of this senseless war, As the war continues, Ukrainian wheat prices will skyrocket, along with Russian fertilizer, which means that farmers will expect an expensive crop in 2023. It's about to get worse, with no end in sight. And the ultimate sufferers would be American households with limited resources at their disposal. Some of these impacts are already showing, like number 5. 1 in 4 adults is still living with their parents. Multi-generational households have been a huge burden on U.S. family incomes, wreaking economic havoc. According to the World Economic Forum, 1 in 4 adults is still living with their parents, a trend that many Americans see as bad for society. Obviously, this stems from the poor economic landscape and the rising cost of living. But trends suggest that massive inflation and unemployment will force more adults to turn to their parents for security in 2023. And parents who are already hopeless from economic uncertainty will face difficulty in sharing resources with their offspring. But there's no way to improve with rents on the rise all the time. Number 6. High rent. Another elephant in the room is the rising cost of living, especially the neck-breaking rental costs. Despite the good news about U.S. rent prices falling in August last year, the long-term outlook still doesn't seem promising. Year-over-year rental price growth will rise from 5.8% to 8.4% as of May 2023, according to a Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas forecast that uses data from the federal government's Consumer Price Index. According to the Joint Center of Housing Studies at Harvard University, over 12% of households in 44 U.S. states struggled to pay rent in early 2022. In some states, such as Mississippi, Delaware, Louisiana, Alabama, and Georgia, the number reached over 20. But this trend will not dial down in 2023, as economists predict a challenging year. A study by the National Low-Income Housing Coalition has revealed that a person making $14 an hour in 2023 would have to work 89 hours a week to cover the rent on a modest one-bedroom rental. This means that already economically stricken American families would find it almost impossible to pay for shelter, especially when we are already in a housing bubble. Number 7. The housing bubble is about to burst. Speaking of the housing crisis, for most Americans, getting a new house is a pipe dream, as an average house costs around $300,000 to build. Thus, the hard-earned money of our citizens is wasted on taking massively huge debts. But with galloping inflation and high mortgages, even getting a loan is a far cry for many. The United States is facing an expanding gap between how much workers earn and how much they have to pay for housing. Wages remain stagnated, yet the cost of rent has steadily increased during that time. Honestly, affordable housing is increasingly scarce, making renters ask, where do we go? Number 8. Stagnated wages. Americans are being lied to about the wonders of capitalism. An average worker has been stuck in corporate slavery with chances of a big pay raise minimal. Most U.S. workers are burning the midnight oil, but their request for a pay rise falls deaf to the ears of employers. A study by the Brookings Institute revealed that for most workers, real wages have barely budged in decades. Even more shocking is that American paychecks are bigger than 40 years ago, but the purchasing power has hardly increased. Now, we've been given news of an incoming recession every day in the mainstream media, and if it's true, there's a grim possibility of wage increases, ultimately giving a huge blow to American family budgets. Number 9. Income disparity. One of the things the U.S. was proud of was the equality of opportunity for everyone. If you work hard enough, you get paid accordingly. But that no longer seems to be the case. According to the Council on Foreign Relations, income and wealth inequality is higher in the United States than in almost any other developed country, and it is rising. While the elites enjoy tax exemptions and exorbitant profits, the lower and middle-income groups enjoy high taxes and lower incomes. In fact, 98% of American wealth is under the control of the top 2%, and this gap between the rich and the poor is about to explode further, leading to the shrinkage of American family budgets. Number 10. Outstanding debts. With more and more families tapping into their credit cards to make ends meet, their balances are getting larger, but their ability to pay off their debts is still being compromised by the highest inflation in 70 years. According to a Fed report, household debt soars at the fastest pace in 15 years as credit card use surges. Moreover, 75% of Americans have missed credit card payments because of the high cost of living, utility bills, and other expenses. And if these debts kept on piling up, or if the debt bomb explodes, it would mean that citizens would have to further cut their expenditures in 2023. Number 11. Increasing interest rates. 2022 was a year of America's biggest enemy. Yep, the rising interest rates. The Fed raised the levels to the highest in almost 15 years, and this meant every citizen was brutalized by this move. Consumers who weren't able to make ends meet were just digging themselves a deeper and deeper hole. Farmers couldn't get cheap loans. Interest payments on housing went overboard, and more households couldn't get out of this predicament. But the Fed announced that interest rate hikes would remain in 2023 as well. Indeed, a sorry state of affairs for family budgets. 12. The rising cost of healthcare. The healthcare sector has been in the doldrums. It's geared towards money-sucking operations rather than the public good. Medical providers are paid for quantity rather than quality. In the lure of profits, they overtreat the patient and charge them heavily. While doctors become wealthy, the common citizen is stuck in the vicious cycle of paying for health insurance, but we've been left in the dark with no one to hear our grievances. According to Value Penguin, the average monthly cost of health insurance in the United States is $560 in 2023. That's a 4% increase on 2022's $531. And if healthcare costs rise, this may put thousands onto worse coverage plans and potentially leave them staring at financial ruin for a problem that was not their fault. Number 13. The rising cost of education. It's not the old America anymore. The majority cannot even think of affordable education. Fewer kids are going to college because they see it costs too much. College dreams are not what they used to be, and education has become a commodity rather than a fundamental human right. A 4-year college degree continues to be the best bet for an economically secure future for young people in the United States. But America has been a hub for student debt. Roughly 43% of the students are behind on their student loan debt repayments. And 2023 is going to be a bed of thorns for the students who would have to tirelessly work hard to write off this liability. But they cannot think of any other luxury because of restricted family budgets. Number 14. Retail sales have dropped significantly. In 2022, around 200,000 businesses have been shut down. Amongst retailers, 3,700 retailers announced closures, which according to UBS estimates means that around 80,000 U.S. stores may close before year's end, and 150,000 may disappear up to the year 2026. It's also expected that in 2023, retail sales would significantly drop owing to a roller coaster economy. And number 15, higher taxes. The U.S. is one of the highest tax-paying countries in the region. Citizens work tirelessly throughout the year to fuel government spending, but elites hold sway and evade taxes while everyone pays the same indirect tax. That's a complete travesty of justice, where everyone, regardless of their income, pays the same tax on basic commodities. It appears that this will continue to haunt average American families when their money will be snatched from them to support tax exemptions for the rich. Have you ever experienced any one of these signs? These are incredibly hard times for millions of us. Most people are the victims of this long-term economic decline. The downfall has begun, and it will slash the American family budgets in 2023. Prepare for the winter, as the crisis will shatter everyone, and it will be irreversible.